Hello there guys, and welcome to another one of my reviews. Today we are going to take a closer look at the Mercedes-Benz GLS. And even though I'm filming this in 2023, the facelift version, the 2024 model, didn't really come up just yet. So we are done talking about this model, which was initially launched in 2020. But apart from some design changes, the new GLS doesn't really come with a lot more tech. So I think this should be a pretty useful review for people interested in buying this car. Now let's take a closer look at its exterior design and of course the interior. So this is the third generation Mercedes-Benz GLS. Now technically this is just the second car that is wearing the GLS nameplate, because the original GLS, if you want to call it like that, was the Mercedes-Benz GL, originally launched in 2006. Now in 2013, the second generation came around, and in 2015 it got the new name, the GLS nameplate. So that was the first generation with the GLS nameplate, and this is the second one launched in 2020. This year, the car got a facelift, but it's not yet deliverable. But there aren't a lot of changes done to it. They refer to the front grille and some details on the AMG models. For example, we have the AMG pack on this car, but you can tell by these air intakes on the sides, but the new one looks a bit more menacing. Nevertheless, this car actually looks good from the front. It has that Mercedes-Benz spirit we've gotten used to over the past few years, and in person, it's actually quite huge. It's 5.2 meters long, it's 1.84 meters tall, and about 2 meters wide. So it's a pretty big car in order to accommodate up to 7 people inside. From the sides, you will actually notice just how big it is. That's because if you look closely at this car, you will notice that it has 21-inch rims, and yet they seem so small when looked at on this car. As a matter of fact, this car can also come with 23-inch wheels, and in its base models with 19-inch wheels, which I'm pretty sure would look absolutely petite compared to this car. We have the AMG pack on this car, so we have these AMG wheels, we have the drilled rotors behind them, and a couple of more add-ons. Now, from the back, you will notice that this car is absolutely huge as well, because it's so boxy, it makes it seem bigger than it actually is. And driving it around town is not necessarily an easy thing to do. Now, this rear end is quite important, because people wanting to buy this car will be interested in how spacious it is. And we're going to talk about that right now. So, this is the boot with all 7 seats lifted. You will notice that the space remaining over here is 354 liters, which is the same amount you get in a A-Class hatchback. Furthermore, you still have some space over here under the floor, so quite useful. Now, of course, since this is a 7-seater, you probably already figured out that you can recline these seats. Now, it does come with 7 seats as standard, and you can use these buttons over here to fold the seats. You have a button for each seat, but today the right side seat has been acting up. It's not folding down when you press on the button. Oh, it does now, of course, but earlier it didn't work. So of course you have buttons on this side as well that allow you to fold the front seats as well, I mean the middle seats, if you will. So we have this tiny little dance that they do in order to fold down. Now, with all the seats folded, you have up to 2,400 liters of space available in this car, which is quite a lot. Now let's raise all the seats, because we want to get inside to see just how well you can fit in them. If you're a person like me, I'm 6 feet tall and I weigh about 250 pounds. So I'm a bit over the average, depending on the country you're in. Of course, if you're in China or Japan, you might feel different about that statement. Now, The materials used for the rear door cards are pretty good. You have leather over here, open pore wood over here. This is the button for the heated seats, and these are the buttons that allow you to adjust this seat. Now, if you want to get in the back, all you have to do is press on this button, pull on that button, and you have another seat dance. And now you can get in the back. Access isn't all that bad. And as I said, I'm not exactly a small guy. Once in the back, you have to make sure you raise this headrest. And let me tell you, it's not exactly an easy thing to do. And then you have a button over here that allows you to pull the seats up front right back into their position. What's annoying is the fact that you have to keep your button, your finger on the button. It doesn't recline automatically. I think this is a safety feature, not to destroy your knees. And this is how I fit in the back. I do touch the backs of the front seats with my knees, but I do have enough room for my feet. As for the headroom, well, it's okay. I mean, I do fit over here in the back. Now, what's interesting is that when Mercedes-Benz announced the GLS, they said that this is the biggest sunroof in the industry at the moment of the launch. But BMW in its X7 has another glass roof piece over here. It doesn't open, but it does add some light in the back. Also, the X7 does have a control panel over here because it has 5-zone climate control. This car doesn't have that. Now let's sit in the front seats, I mean the middle seats, and see how we fit. And while the seats retract, I can tell you that we have 2 USB-C chargers over here and a button for the heated seats. Getting out definitely isn't as easy as getting in. Let's put the seats back, and as I told you, you have to keep your finger on the button in order to do that. Now, from this position, you have to adjust the seats using the buttons on the door. Now, I'm going to sit in the back in this position because this is the position in which I was sitting on the 3rd row, and I want to see how I fit. In terms of legroom, there's plenty of space, both for my legs and my feet, but I do sit kind of upright, so my comfortable position would probably be along this line. So yeah, if you want people about 6 feet tall in the 3rd row of seats, the people on the middle row might not be comfortable for longer trips if they are as tall as I am. Over here in the back, we also have a climate control panel over here and 2 additional USB-C chargers over there. Let's hop in the front, where we don't really have too much to talk about because the front actually looks a lot like any other Mercedes-Benz you can buy today. I mean, they are changing the layout, but it does have these 2 screens, huge screens on the dashboard that serve different purposes. This is the infotainment system, the BMW X infotainment system, and this is the instrument cluster. What you see on the steering wheel over here is the fact that we have those touch sensitive buttons that annoy everyone I've talked to about them. And the BMW X system does work flawlessly, but I do have a complaint, which is this trackpad that's really not that easy to use and has a big issue, which is the fact that since the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto connectivity is done using a wire, not wirelessly, on this model, you will always have this wire over here because everyone uses those systems these days. And if this wire touches the trackpad, it can actually do a series of actions. So I was annoyed a number of times by this thing because if I pull my phone out of, I don't know, from the passenger seat or over here where I usually keep it, this cable would actually trigger certain actions, and I don't like that. However, we do have a couple of buttons over here for the optional off-roading package which this car has, and you can tell that by this button over here, which enters the car in low range mode. This doesn't come as standard. The climate control buttons are as classic as they get, and I appreciate that because they are very easy to use. And that's about it. Another particular thing for the GLS is the fact that you have this button over here which allows the driver to adjust the passenger seat using these buttons over here. You also have memory for the seats and of course a Burmester sound system. That said, let's hop behind the wheel. Well, I am behind the wheel. Let's take this car for a spin and see how it drives. Okay, so driving the Mercedes-Benz GLS, what does it feel like? Well, it feels like a luxurious barge, just like you would expect. It is an incredibly comfortable and refined car, just like you would expect. In terms of engines, the facelifted model I was mentioning, the one introduced this year that I'm not driving, I'm driving the pre-facelift version, does bring a couple of interesting updates. So the model we're actually driving right now, the GLS 400D is no longer offered. It was replaced by the GLS 450D, which is actually a mild hybrid. But they do use roughly the same diesel engine under the hood, which is a 2.9 liter straight 6 unit. In this case, a twin turbo version. The new 450 version is also a twin turbo version, but it develops more power, 367 horsepower, and it has an electric motor alongside it to help it with some boost. So yeah, it's a bit faster and more powerful, but this one is no slouch either. Even though the car has a weight of 2.4 tons, its 330 horsepower and 700 Newton meters of torque help it reach 100 kilometers an hour in just 6.3 seconds. Furthermore, this car can reach a top speed of 238 kilometers an hour, which is more than decent. So it's no slouch in terms of speed or driving dynamics. Well, it's also quite comfortable. All GLS models come with air suspension as standard, but if you want more control over the suspension of your car, you should go for the e-active body control system, which is also an air suspension, but it has active anti-roll bars that can actually adjust each spring and each damper individually, each wheel individually, so that you can have the best comfort or the best dynamics, if you will. I haven't gotten the chance to drive that system on any Mercedes-Benz model so far, but I'm hoping I will in the future. So this car doesn't have that. It's quite comfortable except for over short potholes or short bumps in the road. That's when the whole suspension, the whole chassis becomes a bit flustered and a bit too trembling, if you will. It seems overly annoyed by those kind of bumps in the road. Other than that, I can really find no faults. And mind you, this car does ride on 21-inch wheels, but you saw earlier just how much tire there's left between the rim and the asphalt you're running on. So it should be a bit more comfortable if you ask me. The BMW X7, for example, last time I drove it, it was the M60 version. It's not as comfortable as this car, but it feels more composed over bumps compared to the GLS. So that's surprising nonetheless. And the Range Rover, the new Range Rover long wheelbase version, does feel a lot more composed than both of those cars. It is the most comfortable car in this segment right now. As for the frugality of it all, well, since we have a diesel under the hood, I actually was surprised at how efficient this car was. So on the highway, the average fuel consumption was about 9.5 to 10 liters per 100 kilometers covered, and I didn't spare the car at all, reaching 140, 150 kilometers an hour easily and keeping it there for longer periods of time. So the average speed at the end of my testing cycle was 136 kilometers an hour, which is more than most people will ever do if they want to stick to the speed limit. Around town, well, the fuel consumption did vary quite a lot depending on the traffic. So at the bottom, I saw an average of 12 liters per 100 kilometers covered. At the most, it was up to 20 liters per 100 kilometers covered. But as I said, it will depend exclusively almost on the traffic you encounter. Speaking of driving around town, this isn't exactly an easy car to drive around town, especially in older cities where you have really narrow roads. Consider it more of Autobahn Stürmer, if you will. So a car that's mainly designed for long trips in absolute comfort and with plenty of space. That's where it will truly shine. Because around town, the hefty size of it will, I don't know, sometimes it will be pretty hard to find parking spots. Driving in certain parking areas, for example at the shopping mall, you will be doing a lot of this because you will be afraid of touching the roof to the ceiling and so on. So it's not exactly the most comfortable car to drive around town in terms of your psyche, of course. Overall, I do think this is the S-Class of the SUV world, but only if you refer to it compared to other Mercedes-Benz cars, because, as I already mentioned, the Range Rover is more comfortable, while the BMW X7 is considerably more sporty than this car. Now, it will depend on what you're looking for if you're in the market for a 7-seater such as this one. So if you're looking for the sportiest such car, you should probably look at the BMW X7. If you're looking for the most comfortable one, you should probably look at the Range Rover. If you're looking for something in between, this is the one you want to get. Pricing will vary depending on the country you're in. Usually these cars start at roughly 100,000 euros around here in Europe, depending of course on the market and the various promotions done by dealers around you. So that said, this has been my review of the Mercedes-Benz GLS 400D. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, give me a thumbs up, comment, a like, whatever pleases you, just to keep this channel alive. Interact with this clip. Maybe share it with a friend. It will help a lot. Until next time, don't forget, of course, to feed your passions. Ciao.